Hello everyone and welcome back to the Poppy and Witchy Show, and today Poppy is with us. So today we are going to review a book that we read recently. As you know, last time I finished The Black Mage, and then I was going to read The Secret of Platform 13 by Eva Ibbotson. Now, earlier this year, well, not this year, but I guess 2021, thinking in school years here, during this past school year, I did buy the Beyond the Secrets of Platform 13, or is it called Beyond Platform 13? Anyhow, I'll link it below. And it was a continuation by another author, continuing Eva Ibbotson's books. So I read The Secret of Platform 13, which is the first one in that series. Now, the book I have is actually 3 different stories. I don't know if they're interconnected, but I did read the second story on the cover, which is The Secret of Platform 13. Obviously, we can already tell from the title that it's very similar to Platform 9 3/4. So, if you are actually interested in reading this book and you don't want spoilers, now's the time to stop the video, go read the book, and then come back and watch the video after you finish reading, so that way you don't get any spoilers, and we can then talk about the similarities that I found in the book. Okay. All right. So if you are interested in hearing about those similarities now, I'm going to go into those. First of all, number 1, the Platform 9 3/4 versus Platform 13. It's the only way to get to this magical island in Harry Potter. It's one of the few ways to get to Hogwarts. It's both at King's Cross Station, which is obvious because that's the main station in England. But for the fact that it's, that they give it a platform number that's not there, I mean, obviously J.K. Rowling had to have taken that from somewhere. She did in previous interviews, Rowling had said that she doesn't know where her ideas come from other than her imagination, because she claims that she doesn't watch sci-fi or fantasy for the most part. She does like to read, but she's like, my ideas are my own. Well, turns out several books that were published before hers, and during the time that, her daughter was a baby, she would have been reading these books to her. So I think Rowling is either not being humble enough to state where her ideas were inspired by, or she just really wanted Harry Potter universe to be entirely separate from everything and refuses to say that she was inspired by anything other than her own imagination. Now, as a reader and writer myself, oftentimes my short stories are inspired by something I've read. Is it an exact copy? No. Are there similar details? Kinda, but I try to make it my own stuff. Whereas just changing the platform number, no. That's a little too close to the original for me. The platform is not the only similarity in the books. So The Secret of Platform 13 starts off with King and Queen of the island, and they're normal humans, but other magical fae live there. And not just fae, there's wizards, there's giants, etc. And these 3 nurses named Violet, Lily, and Rose, okay, obviously one right there, Lily. So they went with the flower names for the nurses taking care of the little prince, and Lily and Aunt Petunia were named for flowers. They take the prince, whose name is not given yet in the book until a little bit later on. We'll get into that. They take him back to the mainland, up there, to explore, and so how they get there is these transportation gumps, basically like secret magic tubes that send you through really fast. Think like a port key. They take them, they open up every 9 years for 9 days at a time. And that's how magical creatures can get from the island to the main area and from England back to the island. The island is covered in this magical mist that is caused by what they call mist makers. Now, the mist makers kind of look like really fuzzy otters, but there's some other little similarities to the pygmy puff and to nifflers and how they get about. I'll get to that in a minute. But back to the nurses and the prince. So there's this woman who is non-magical. She doesn't believe in magic, none of that. And she's a very rich woman. She's wanted to have children all throughout her marriage and hasn't been able to. So she's really desperate for a baby. She goes to an adoption agency. They don't have any children available for adoption. And then she spies a nurse nodding off on a park bench with this little baby in her arms, and she kidnaps the baby. So the king and queen are distraught. They decide to put together a rescue team to recover their child, but the child had been taken during the last night of the 9 days. And so they have to wait 9 years to go back and send a rescue team to go and find him. The rescue team is made up of originally 3 magical creatures, not creatures, but people that they had selected to go and rescue, and then a 4th one tags along. So I'm just going to show the cover again here. So we have Odge, she's the one who tags along, and then we have Gerkentrude, this guy up here who's somewhat invisible, that is Hans, and then this is Cor, short for Cornelius. Obviously, wizard looks very similar, you know, wizard robes and everything to Dumbledore. I mean, that's basic. But Cornelius is not that much of a common name. And so Cornelius, and the very first thing that pops in my head is Cornelius Fudge. Now, the giant Hans is described as being short for a giant. And he's also very kind-hearted. Kind of sounds like Hagrid. He's short for a giant because he's only a half giant. Then Gerkentrude is a like a garden fae or something like that, but she does all the gardening. She's got live plants living on her hat and so on. So she grows gardens, and obviously herbology was very big in Harry Potter. She dresses in green. Hello, we have Madame Sprout. Odge is not an exact copy of any of the other characters, or not, the other characters aren't a direct copy of Odge, since this book's more original. It came out before Harry Potter. But Odge isn't like her sisters. They're all hags that have different abilities, and they look all sorts of ways, and she looks quite normal except for a blue molar in the back of her mouth. But she's kind of bossy, a little bit of a know-it-all, so kind of seems to me that she matches Hermione quite well, but then she's also a bit of an oddball like Luna. Now, you'll notice that she's carrying, let me get that where we can see it. She's carrying a suitcase, right? That suitcase has holes in it, so that way whatever in it can breathe. What was also carried in a suitcase? Teddy the Niffler. From, you know, Fantastic Beasts. Don't have to say that, really. But they kind of look, like I said, like a fuzzy otter. And kind of very similar to the description of a pygmy puff, a fuzzy ball with small face and paws. Yeah. So Odge brings this, this creature, which is called a mist maker. Whenever they're happy, and they're happy because they hear music, so whenever they hear music, they create this mist, and the mist keeps their island completely covered, and so that way normal humans never see the island. In the second book, the continuation, it was all about saving the island and the mist makers because they were no longer happy, and the island was becoming visible. Okay, so back into this story. They send this team, they go to find their prince, except for when they get there, they're greeted by this kid named Ben at Trottle Tower. Miss Trottle was the one who wanted a baby, and he's not fazed at all by any of the magic stuff. He's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. And they're there to rescue the prince, which they believe is Miss Trottle's son. Since, she kidnapped him as a baby, and they think that Raymond, who looks an awful lot like his mom, blonde hair, blue-eyed, very chubby, very spoiled, already sounds like Aunt Petunia and Dudley. So even the images look kind of similar. I mean, he's a tubby kid. He's always eating, chocolates, complaining of stomachache, and then, demanding things left and right. Like, he says, oh, I'm too sick to go to school. So his mom calls into the school, says he's going to be out. And then he's suddenly better and demands that they go for lunch in town and that they go shopping for toys afterwards. And at first she tries to coax him out of it and stay at home since he's not feeling well. But she doesn't put up much of a fight because he screams and throws a temper tantrum. So she gives in to him every time because it's her little baby and she's got to give him the world, right? So they think that the prince is Raymond, and they go to rescue him, and he's not fazed by any of their magic whatsoever. He's like, this is boring. I can see this anywhere. There's magic tricks everywhere. I can go to the circus and see it. Like, give me something new. So he asks the wizard if the wizard can turn anything into gold. And that's the only reason why he agrees to go back with them to the island. But before they can even get away to the island, the kid goes missing. His mom, has, she's completely distraught. Her little baby, oh my gosh. And she convinces him that these were crazy people trying to drug him and kidnap him. Since the family's rich, they wanted him for ransom, and they go into hiding. Now back to the other character, Ben. Ben, who doesn't look anything like Miss Trottle, he's been raised in the basement by Mrs. Trottle's former nanny, who he calls his grandmother. He claims that she's taken him in and raised him. So somewhere along the line, Miss Trottle was able to have her own kid, probably shortly after she kidnapped Benjamin, and then just gave her biological kid the world and everything he could ever want. And get this, Ben's room is described as a cupboard of a room in the basement. Cupboard under the stairs. Yeah, quite an obvious similarity there to me. Ben is also described as his hair is flopping over his eyes. He's in desperate need of a haircut, and he's not allowed any visitors. Sounds like the Dursleys again, and Harry's description of his hair, which is unkempt. So some similarities there. And one other similarity that stood out to me in the story is that the wizard, after they've tried and tried to get Raymond to go to the island with them, he's tired, he's exhausted, they've all had a long day, they're not in good spirits, so he's eating his food that has bones in it, and rather than cut around the bones because he's just completely exhausted, it's a waste of time, he just wants to eat and go to bed, he uses a liquefying spell that essentially turns them to a jelly and then gone. So immediately when I read that, I'm thinking Lockhart in the Chamber of Secrets having cast a spell to fix Harry's broken arm at the Quidditch match, and he ends up with no bones in his arm and they have to regrow it. That right there was a very specific detail that really stood out to me. Like, where did J.K. Rowling come up with this idea? It could have come from here, because this book was published a few years before she really got started writing on the Harry Potter series. So yeah, this book had quite some similarities. Just to give you the end, if you're already here and you want to hear how the ending goes, they end up realizing that Raymond was not really the prince at all, and now they're like distraught because they couldn't get Raymond, and then Raymond's brought in by the Harpies, which are these just they're in the second book too. They actually take over the island, which is why in the second book the Mistmakers aren't happy, because there's no more music. They've banned music, but they stink, and They're very bossy, and if you look at the pictures of them, they look similar to Dolores Umbridge's hair. The way their hair is curled and pinned in place and all the pointed features, you know, it's just very similar. But Raymond gets dropped there. They find out that, yeah, Raymond is not the prince. And so they then realize that Ben is the prince all along. And Audrey tried to encourage him before she knew he was the prince to come join them on the island, since he thought, you know, magic was awesome. And he was unfazed by it. They find out, but now it's almost out of time, and it turns out he was able to get in to the Gump just in time to make it. And so finally the prince is home. And that was the book. All right, so before we go, I do have one more Real Littles, since I'm going to do book reviews and crafts and stuff, and then still include a blind pack, at least at the end. So we have another Real Littles to open up, so let's go ahead and get into that today. Okay, we have the Home Style Eggo Waffles. And there he is with a little splash of syrup, and he's winking. That's cute. Let's see who our other one is. Oh, we have the snack packs. This is butterscotch flavored. So the little pudding snack packs. And get this, not one, but 2 little minis inside. So here's one. Let's get the other one out. And there's the other one. So cute. Let's get them side by side. And there we go. And see, these two by themselves would make cute little earrings. But they're adorable, and I'm probably going to put them either in... I've got to find some way to display all my collections, or something. Yeah, because we're running out of space in the library. And that was after just putting in 2 books. But that's all for today. So Poppy and I are going to wish you all a magical day. Bye, everyone.